So you decided to start a YouTube channel. What type of gear do you need? Well, that's the question that we're going to be answering in this video. And if you happen to wanting to start a travel YouTube channel, we got some specific tips for you right here, right now.
So to start, you're going to need some equipment. Now, some people might tell you, you're gonna need all this equipment. You need to get a camera, you need to get lights, you need a microphone, you need this, you need that, and you must be thinking, oh my God, how am I going to afford this? Well, we're here to tell you that yes, you do need gear, but no, you do not need everything on that gear list. You can start your YouTube channel with even just your cell phone. So we're gonna go through a list of 4 different things today. We're gonna talk about filming gear, editing gear, studio setup, and then we're gonna go through some interesting extras that you don't want to miss.
Ooh, interesting extras. And to cap it all off, we'll show you all the gear that we started with and what we're using right now. Let's go. To kick it off, let's talk about your filming gear. It's your most important piece of gear. Actually, that's not true at all, but it is the thing that you are going to be capturing video with. So, what do you need? A DSLR? A GoPro? Does it need to be mirrorless? What about a camera with a flippity-do screen? There's so many different options. Oh yeah, the phone camera, so many different options. So what do you need? You just need something that you know how to work. So if your level is at the cell phone camera, hey, go for it. If you wanted something a little bit more advanced because you know how to work it, go with the DSLR. But these are the things that you should consider. Number 1, if you are skilled with it, then get it. Meaning, if you don't know how to take video and photographs with a DSLR camera, it is probably not the best option for you. You will need, with a DSLR camera, you'll need to adjust all the settings as you go. And for an amateur like us, that was way too much.
I was gonna say, that is why we did not go with the DSLR.
Yes. We also didn't go with our cell phones either, because frankly, we have these potato cell phones
not
that,
very good.
No, it didn't take very good footage.
Not great.
We kind of tried the GoPro, but it wasn't quite doing it for us because it was too wide and we weren't able to zoom and retract. So it came down to a simple point-and-shoot vlogger type camera.
It was the perfect in-between because you can either put it on auto if you have no idea how to set the camera settings, and then as you get used to your camera, which is something we've started to do, you can start to play with the settings a little bit more. So it's a great combination of not knowing what you're doing, but also having the ability to learn how to use it.
Exactly. So Tia shortlisted us into 2 different choices, a Sony and a Canon. I actually cannot remember which Sony it is, but they were very close, but about $500 apart. We went to the store and the person gave us some really good information and a piece of advice, which is, if you don't know what you're doing, get the cheaper one, because you'll eventually want to upgrade anyways. So we purchased the Canon G7X Mark II, and we've been very happy with it. Like
It's also survived many falls.
Yes. Like Tia said, it's a point-and-shoot camera, so we were able to hit the ground running and just focused on creating the content rather than battling our technology. But it had enough flexibility that we grew into it and we learned about the pros and cons. So that is the very best camera for us. The second piece of gear that goes with your camera is an SD card.
So important.
So important. Now, the first thing to do is to buy more than one. We have actually 3 of them. 2 that are in here and 1 that's in the camera. This is so that if someone forgets to empty the footage, or if one goes corrupt, like it actually has happened to us, we can swap them out right on site instead of having to buy another one. Now, all of these are more or less the same, but there are a few things to be careful of. Number 1, you want to purchase a SD card from a reputable company. I always purchase SanDisk cards just because I've used them a lot and I trust them. The second thing is that there are differences between cards. You want to get one that has a very fast write speed. Something that's better than 90 megabytes per second. And the reason is your camera is writing to this card extremely fast. You're capturing many frames per second. So
especially with video.
Especially with video. And progressing into 4K videos, your little SD card is going to take a really heavy beating. You need something that can support it. So the biggest stat that you need to be looking for is that better than 90 megabyte per second memory card.
Also make sure that it has enough space on it, because with video files, they're quite large and they do take up a lot of space.
Oh yes, that is a great point. With going off of what TA is saying is, how do I know if I'm getting a good deal? I would say at about 1 gigabyte per dollar that you're spending is kind of the average. So if you can beat that, that is great. We have 3 128 gigabyte cards, and that's done really well for us.
Well, that brings us to tripods. Now, you're going to want some sort of tripod to use with your camera, especially if you're going to be going out and about to vlog versus just being at home. Now, there's a whole plethora of options you can go with. You can use a traditional tripod, which we're actually using on this camera right now while we're filming, so we'll add a little clip in there for you. And then you can also use the smaller tripod slash GorillaPod type deals like we have here. Now, what I want to mention is you don't necessarily have to go with the biggest name brand when it comes to choosing your tripod, especially if budget is an issue for you. And that's exactly what we did. We had initially looked at GorillaPod branded tripods because we saw it's the biggest name. We knew a lot of people were using them. We knew it had great reviews. But when it came down to it, we just didn't have, you know, $80 in the budget to spend on a tripod after having purchased our brand new camera. So what we did is we went online, we went onto Amazon, and we looked for cheaper alternatives. And that's when we came across this Lammcou. It's very similar. Lammcou.
Can't pronounce it.
It's very similar to a GorillaPod, but we actually ended up liking this more because it doesn't have the little bulbs on it. And the arms here are actually rubber, so they have really good grip. If you're holding it, it's really grippy, or if you're wrapping it around things, it's really grippy. And we have used this from the start, and we absolutely love it. So don't feel like you need to be cornered into getting the biggest name brand tripod. Just go for something that is going to meet the needs that you're looking for. Now, our next piece of equipment is something that we did not purchase right from the beginning, but we have acquired through our year and a few months as YouTubers, and that is a microphone. Now, the reason we went for the microphone is because as travel vloggers, we are typically outside, and you can't control the weather. The weather is going to do whatever it wants.
It controls you.
So that means if you're out vlogging on a windy day, chances are all you're gonna hear in your camera footage is wind.
It's pretty annoying, isn't it?
That was a really good impression of the sound.
Yeah, because I heard it a lot when we didn't have a camera or didn't have a microphone.
So because of that, we did go ahead and purchase a microphone. And again, we did the same thing that we did for the tripod. We went on Amazon and we found something that was within our budget. We read the reviews, saw it had good reviews, and that's what ultimately led us to make the decision to purchase this. Now, we each got our own because they were cheaper, and so far they have worked out perfectly for us. We use them, like we mentioned, on windy days, on rainy days. We used it at Universal Orlando to try and cut out all of the music that was in the background of the theme park, and obviously the loud noise from the crowds. So definitely it's been beneficial having the microphone, and again, we did not have to go with the top name brand $100 microphone.
That's right. Okay, one very popular item that travel vloggers all have for a very good reason. It's something magical that makes your movement silky smooth, and it is a gimbal. A lot of people, myself included, got into this and immediately was like, what? I want a gimbal. But this is the question I want to answer for you guys. Is it worth it?
That's a really great question, Andy.
Yeah, it's kind of. So here's the pro. Your videos are gonna be silky smooth. That's it. Here are the cons. 1, did you know you have to calibrate them? 2, do you realize how heavy they are?
Oh my gosh, so heavy. It was so heavy.
3, do you know how quickly this thing runs out of batteries? 4, do you know how big the boxes are? It's honestly a logistical nightmare. We tried ones that are for real cameras, we tried ones that are handheld like this, we tried all the big names, and we ended up going with this one. It's a knockoff of a Zui or something, the biggest Chinese gimbal maker, and this one is for cell phones. But we 3D printed a little holder for our GoPro, which now we attach on there to shoot 4K video.
Now how this actually came about, here, let's trade here. We actually found an attachment like this for a GoPro on Amazon. However, our GoPro is another knockoff because, you know, it didn't fit in the budget to buy a GoPro. So the attachment that we found on Amazon did not actually fit the action camera that we had. So another way that we saved money is Andy actually 3D printed this. He designed it and 3D printed it himself. And this is what we use as an attachment for our action camera in our knockoff gimbal.
All right, Tia, you're the editor of this duo. Talk about it. Was it worth it?
So when we bought the initial gimbal for our camera, I'm gonna say it wasn't worth it. It was so heavy. It's not something that we would have used all the time while we were vlogging. We would still use our tripod, and then for the smooth shots, we would switch it over to the gimbal. It was just way too much. It was way too heavy. It was way too much gear to be carrying around for us, personally.
Right.
Now, once we came across this version, which is a little bit tinier, and we found, you know, the attachment to go with the action cam, I will say that it is worth it. Do we use it all the time? No, we don't. Do we use it during our walking footage? Yes,
absolutely.
We do. And the great part about it is there's 2 of us, and having the gimbal with the action cam allows Andy to take that, and then I get to use the tripod with the camera, and we can actually combine the footage that we have to get our action shots and our moving shots.
Additionally, we were able to get walkabout footage and vlog footage all in one go. So if you can get yourselves on something like this, it's not a bad addition, but definitely not something you need to start with. Alright, gear section number 2, which is your editing gear. First off, before we get into any software, let's answer the question. Do you need a $5,000 MacBook Pro? Or do you even need to have a Mac, or can you use a Windows machine? Well, let's answer that question. What is the advantage of the MacBook Pro over a Windows machine? I'm gonna set it straight right here. There is no difference. It's whatever it is you're more familiar with. So if you are a Mac user, stick with the Mac. If you are a Windows user, use that. When picking out your editing machine, there is really only a couple of things you should consider. 1, it should have an SSD, which is a solid state drive. Most new laptops come with this, and it's the single piece of component that will give you the biggest bang for the buck. The second thing that you should be considering is your processor. So video editing is actually a lot of math that the computer is doing. So you need a quick processor, then your editing experience will be much smoother and your computer will thank you.
And what do we recommend for the RAM?
For the RAM, 16 gigs is best, but that can get expensive, so 8 will do. And if you can swing it, get an i7. That will be more than enough for at least 5-6 years.
I personally found that the i7 with the 16 gig of RAM has been the best thus far with editing.
So you recently upgraded.
I did.
Why don't you talk about it?
Sure. So I had initially started out on, I think it was an i5, 8 gigs of RAM. I struggled. It was a struggle. Sometimes my computer could not handle what I was trying to do with the video editing. I did have things crash frequently or freeze, but I was still able to get videos edited and get them out. It was just a lengthier process. So after upgrading to the i7 16 gig RAM, it is a whole new world. And I will say, if that is within your budget, highly recommend those specs.
Right. The very last thing to consider is longevity of your machine. Now, if you're on a Mac, there's very little you can do. But on a PC, you could go with something that is a little less fancy, like a Lenovo, which has upgradable parts. So then you can upgrade your RAM as it comes, sometimes your storage. These are little things to consider, but the one thing that's going to make the biggest difference is the processor and the RAM.
So that brings us to your editing software. Now what we did when we started is we used Google. We just Googled what the most common or popular editing softwares were, and we looked at quite a few different lists, and we saw that there were some commonalities in these lists. Some of the top ones were Final Cut Pro for a MacBook. We saw Filmora come up a lot, which is not one that we had ever heard of at the time. And there was a few other ones that came up on that list as well. Premiere Pro.
Yeah, that was the one other big one.
Those are really the three. So what we ended up going with, again, because of budget and because we were brand new, is we went with Filmora. The reason we went with Filmora as well is I don't use a MacBook, nor did I want to start using a MacBook.
Remember, using something that you're familiar with is going to be the key.
Absolutely. So Filmora was the best of both worlds. It could be used on a Mac or on a Windows machine. It wasn't too pricey, and it was a really good starting point for us. The other piece that really sold us on Filmora was that we were able to do a bundle or a package. So not only did we get the editing software itself, we also got availability to libraries for audio, so things like music and sound effects. And we also have like editing packages, so things like different effects or different little icons are all part of our package, and we are available to use them copyright free. Now, just because I chose Filmora doesn't mean that's the right software for you. The ones that you're interested in, really take a deeper dive into what is offered in their packages, and take a look at even some tutorials on YouTube and see what kind of things you can do with them. I will say at this point, I've used Filmora for a little bit over a year, and there are some limitations that I'm coming across now that I am more familiar with editing. But as a starting point, Filmora was really fantastic. Most of these softwares are also often offered by a licensing or subscription model. So you basically purchase a yearly subscription and it renews each year until you decide to cancel. So just because you purchase something one year, if you're finding it's not meeting your needs and you want to change, you only have to stick with them for a year. The second part of editing comes down to music and sound effects. Now, as I mentioned earlier, Filmora came as a package with audio and sound effects. So we did not go with another company to get any extras. We really have just been using Filmora, and we've also been using the YouTube audio library, which has been really handy in finding new songs and different sound effects that we can use in our videos. However, if you're looking for a broader range of options, you can go with other companies such as Epidemic Sound. It's a very popular one. These are also a subscription-based model, meaning that you buy a subscription. I believe it's usually yearly, and that gives you access to the different music and sound effect files that they have. You're able to use them in your videos copyright free. Now again, if you're just starting out, maybe this is not something you need to get right away, especially if you're being budget conscious. However, if you are looking to have that broader range, it's definitely an option that's still available.
Alright, gear list broad category number 4 is a studio. Now, a travel vlogger why do I need a studio?
Well, let me tell you, because when you want to make videos like this, or tutorial type videos, or informational travel vlogging videos, or even do a live stream, you'll still want to have some sort of dedicated space if you're like us and you're not traveling full time.
Okay, we started out and we did not think of this, and we didn't really think that this was something that was needed. But what we found was that without a dedicated space like this, we would have to set up a space like this every single time we wanted to do one of these things.
We would also have to look for the right time of day so we could get the best lighting.
That was way too many variables to control, so we decided to set up a little studio for ourselves to make our lives easier. There are two key things when it comes to setting up a studio. One is lighting, and two is some decoration. So let's get into it. Lighting. What you'll need is two big lights so that you can blast your face with light and kill all the shadows. That's basically what you're looking for. We found the cheapest floodlight on Amazon, and it has worked really well for us. The pack came with two floodlights that are stationary and one that's on an accentuated arm. We've only used the two right now, and it's worked wonderfully to fill this room with light.
Part two of this is your furniture. So things like a desk, obviously some chairs to sit on, and then the decor that you want in your space. Now this is totally customizable to what you're looking for. However, we went with, again, our travel related theme. So we actually created, we did an arts and crafts day. We made our little Tia and Andy logo up at the top there. We've got some of our travel books, some of our old cameras, and then in typical 2019-2020 fashion, we did go with one of these light up signs that say, please subscribe. So if you haven't done so yet, hit the subscribe button and the post notification bell. I promise you we have lots more great content like this coming your way. Now, some additional travel essential gear that you might want to bring with you are things to carry all your gear in. So to start, you'll probably want a backpack. I've got my handy dandy Herschel backpack here. This is a tube backpack, and this acts as my personal item on an airplane, and it also acts as one of our main gear carriers. Now, it's very important to have a backpack to put your gear in, especially if you're traveling, because you cannot take batteries into your checked luggage. They have to come on the plane with you. So you do need a dedicated spot for that, and a backpack is the perfect place to store those items.
Right. The next thing is you're gonna have a lot of little things. SD cards are tiny, cables all over the place, so we highly recommend one of these carrying cases. This is the case that came with our this guy GoPro knockoff, and I repurposed it into the thing that we carry all our little knickknacks in these pouches, which again are from our microphones. They carry all our cables. We have drone batteries in here, gimbal, GoPro battery, camera battery, all this stuff. So a central place to carry all your little knickknacks. The last piece of optional gear that is really coming back in style. Say hello to the 90s and fanny packs! Tia bought one a while ago. At the same time, I was contemplating getting one, but then we thought, let's start with one. Now that I have one as well, I gotta say, this thing is great when you're vlogging. Camera goes in, microphone goes in, everything
Batteries go in.
Yeah, just nice and quick, easy to access, and stylish too.
So now we want to talk about what gear we started with versus what gear we have now. And I'm going to tell you the list is not much different apart from a couple of new additions that we got a little bit into our YouTube journey. So to start, we really just had our Canon G7X Mark II camera, which is our biggest purchase that we made when we started our YouTube channel. We had our tripod, our Lammcou tripod. We had
2 SD cards at first, and that was about it for our filming gear. We started with that and we made it mostly through the year with just that.
We also purchased our editing gear, so our 1-year subscription with Filmora, and we used our existing home laptops at the time that we started. So it was a very minimal gear and it got us through an entire year of YouTube footage.
Right. Now, where are we now? We still have the same camera, we still have the same tripod, we still have the same memory card, we've added the microphone and
the drone.
The drone, and we added the gimbal. That is all the additions, and we got them all on Craigslist or Kijiji, wherever you are in the world. For editing gear, I don't think anything has changed. Tia hadn't upgraded her laptop, and I got another Mac, but this was not for business. It was a gift. And
I think probably the biggest change that we had was the creation of our YouTube studio.
Yes, the creation of our YouTube studio. This has made a huge difference for our video production, and we invested some money into it. Just the lights and the furniture, really.
So I think that really goes to show that you don't need a whole lot of money in starting a YouTube channel. You could even just use your cell phone if, you know, your budget is tight. As long as you have something to record on, you're good to go. And as you start to progress and you build out a budget for how much you want to spend on your YouTube, that's when you can start to upgrade your gear to what you're looking for.
Yes, that's really good advice. So basically, anything to film and something to edit. Give it a try. You'll love it.
Well, there you have it, guys. That is our list of a YouTube starter kit for 2020. If you have any comments or questions, please put them in the comments below. We love to help out and give you any information that we can based on our own experiences. And again, if you are liking this content and you want to see more of our creator series or our travel adventures, hit the subscribe button and the post notification bell and give us a huge thumbs up. Otherwise, we will catch you on the